The first time I ended up with Tatum Reeves in my arms, I was carrying two large Americanos from the third-floor coffee bar. My laptop bag was cutting into my shoulder, and I had about 3 seconds to decide whether to let the cups win or catch the person walking backward out of the war room door while staring at her phone. I caught the person. The coffee did not survive. Oh my God. She spun around, and for exactly 1 second, Tatum looked genuinely horrified. Then she looked at me, then at the two soaked cups between us, then back at me. Something shifted in her expression. Okay, she said, this is officially your fault. I looked at the wall I'd been standing against for the past 30 seconds, waiting for the printer to finish a job. I was stationary. You were in my blind spot. I was against the wall. She plucked her wet sleeve away from her wrist and examined it with the careful attention of someone filing a formal complaint. You should have announced yourself. I stared at her. She was completely serious, or performing completely serious, which with Tatum Reeves was often the same thing and impossible to tell apart. I'll keep that in mind, I said. She smiled then, not the client-facing smile she used in presentations, the real one, the one that showed up without asking permission first. Good. Go get us more coffee. You owe me. That was 6 months ago. I thought about it approximately every 3 days. My name is Cade Merritt. I'm 28, a back-end engineer at a fintech startup called Larkspur Financial in Austin, Texas, and I had built most of my adult life around a simple philosophy. Do good work, stay useful, don't make things weird. I had a clean apartment in South Congress, a gym membership I actually used, and 2 fantasy football leagues I was middling in with great consistency. I was the kind of person who kept his calendar color-coded and his deductibles memorized. I liked things exactly where I left them. I also had a rule about coworkers, specifically one coworker. The rule was, don't. Tatum worked in UX design, 2 floors up, on a project that intersected with mine every 6 weeks or so. She had a way of walking into a meeting and immediately locating the one assumption everyone had silently agreed not to question. She drew wireframes on sticky notes during calls, and somehow they were better than what the design team submitted after 3 revision cycles. She kept a small cactus on her desk named Clyde. I knew this because Otto from my team had told me, along with approximately 40 other things about Tatum, that he relayed as if filing a report I'd specifically requested. I had not requested the report, but I had not stopped him. The rule existed because I was 28 and had already learned the particular kind of humiliation that came from caring about someone at work too much and then having to see them on Mondays afterward. My last serious relationship had ended when my fiancée, 11 days before our wedding, sat down across from me at our kitchen table and told me, as gently as a person can say something devastating, that she loved the version of our future more than she loved me. She was kind about it. She apologized. That almost made it worse. I spent 3 weeks eating cereal over the sink. Then I went back to work and decided the safest place to keep your feelings was behind a well-maintained pull request review process. 18 months later, enter a 48-hour company hackathon. Larkspur held one every year, 2 days, mixed teams, one shared problem, and enough catered food to guarantee nobody had a reason to leave the building. It was framed as innovation and culture building. It was actually a way for leadership to observe how people behaved when exhausted and under pressure. Morris, our CTO, who wore the same fleece vest to every event, including what I assumed were his own birthday parties, had confirmed this to me once with an expression that suggested he considered it a compliment. I did not consider it a compliment. I signed up anyway, because I was on the team that didn't have a choice. What I failed to account for was losing Otto at hour 4 when he texted me from urgent care with a kidney stone, and the message, "Brother, I am so sorry this is happening to me right now." Our team lead made one call. We needed a UX resource who could also think through front-end logic under real pressure, immediately. There was one person available. She had just been freed up when her team collapsed its scope. Tatum walked in at 2 in the afternoon, carrying a whiteboard marker and a cold brew she hadn't finished. "Merritt," she said, reading my name off the team board on the wall. "Reeves," I said. She uncapped the marker. "I've got notes on your existing prototype. Brace yourself." That was when I fully understood this weekend was going to ruin me in some way I hadn't prepared for. For the first 3 hours, we disagreed about almost everything. Not badly, productively, the kind of disagreeing where both people are right about different things simultaneously. She thought my data architecture was elegantly over-engineered for the scope. I thought her user flow skipped a friction point that would cause problems on mobile. We were both correct. The result of combining our approaches was better than either version on its own, which was irritating and satisfying in a ratio I'd have to think about later. By hour 7, we had a working demo. By hour 9, we had a shared document with 15 comment threads that read like two people learning to argue in the same language. By hour 11, the building was quiet except for us. We were on the floor of the war room, backs against the conference table, laptops balanced on our knees, the remains of catered tacos in cardboard containers between us. Tatum had taken off her shoes. I had stopped pretending to care about my posture. The fluorescent overheads were on their motion sensor setting and had turned off twice, requiring one of us to wave an arm at the ceiling. "Can I ask you something?" she said, not looking up from her screen. "Sure." "Why do you label everything so precisely? Your commits, your comments. Even the Figma layers you handed me were organized down to the subcomponent level." I thought about it. I like knowing where things are when I need them. She looked at me sideways. That's either a system or a trauma response. Could be both. She almost smiled. My ex used to say I was chaotic, like it was a fundamental problem. Your Figma layers aren't chaotic. No. She looked back at her screen. I just kept the chaos somewhere he wasn't looking. I didn't respond. I had learned that some moments only worked if you let the silence do its part. "Sorry," she said. 11 p.m. overshare. Blame the cold brew. "You don't have to apologize." She glanced at me quickly, like she was checking something, and then looked away. At 1:15, her phone lit up on the table between us. She reached for it automatically, read whatever was on the screen, and turned it face down in a single motion that was just slightly too smooth to be casual. I'd already seen it, hadn't meant to. It was right there. "From Dad. Got your message. I know the timing is hard. Bonnie and I think it's better if the reception stays small. Hope you understand." Tatum was looking at the whiteboard. Her expression hadn't shifted dramatically. But something beneath it had changed. The way a room changes when someone cracks a window in February. Same room. Just colder than it was a minute ago. "You okay?" I said. "Fine." Automatic, the kind of fine that meant the opposite. "Tatum." She exhaled. "My dad is getting remarried in 6 weeks. I've known about it for 4 months." She set down her empty cold brew can. "He just informed me there isn't room for me at the reception." His words were, "Hope you understand." Which is what you write when you know they can't possibly understand, but you need them to say they do. She looked at the whiteboard like it owed her something. "I'm sorry," I said. "It's fine," softer this time. "We were never that close. I saw this coming, I just thought maybe." She didn't finish it. I got up, walked to the mini fridge the facilities team had stocked for the weekend, and came back with 2 cans of LaCroix. Lime, because that was what was left. I set one beside her knee and sat back down on the floor, a little closer than before. She looked at the can, then at me. "I wasn't ready to get back to work yet," I said. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she cracked the can open. "Clyde would like you," she said. "I've never met Clyde. He's a cactus on my desk. He's extremely particular about people. He wouldn't warm up to just anyone." High praise from a cactus. She laughed, and it came out immediately. No delay, no approval needed first. She looked mildly surprised by it. We sat there past 2 in the morning, not talking about the pitch, not talking about anything especially important. Just 2 people in an empty office, drinking sparkling water while the building hummed around them. Sunday's presentation went better than I had any right to expect, given that we'd prepared for 40 minutes on 3 hours of sleep. Tatum walked the panel through the UX logic with a calm that made it look effortless. I handled the technical questions, the edge case scenarios, the one VP who kept asking variations of the same budget question. We had never formally practiced the handoffs between us, but they happened anyway, like we'd been doing this long enough to anticipate each other's pauses. We placed second. First went to a team that had built a crypto integration. Morris loved it. I spent 9 minutes being irritated about this, and then Tatum materialized beside me with half a donut from the celebration table and said, "For what it's worth, ours actually worked." And I stopped being irritated. That should have been the natural endpoint. 2 days, a good collaboration, back to separate floors. Instead, on Tuesday, I got a text from a number I didn't have saved. There is a trivia night at Batchcraft on Thursday that my friends won't stop bothering me about. I need someone who won't embarrass me. Otto is still dealing with his kidney situation. Do you want to come? I read it 3 times, then I typed, define embarrass. She wrote back, if you reference a Marvel movie for any trivia answer, we're done. I wrote back, I'll be there. Batchcraft was loud and warm, the kind of East 6th bar that smelled like beer and wood smoke and had exposed brick that everyone agreed was charming, even when it was clearly a fire code concern. Her friends were already at the table when I arrived, 3 women and a guy named Prescott who clearly had opinions about me before I sat down. The one named Priscilla had the precise smile of someone who had already formed her verdict and was simply waiting to see if I'd confirm it. Tatum met me at the door. She'd changed from her work clothes into dark jeans and a deep green top, her hair down instead of in the clip she usually wore. She looked like a version of herself that existed when there was nothing to perform. You're early, she said. You said 7. I did. Something passed across her face. My last 3 attempts at this brought people who showed up at 7:15. I'm not. I stopped. She had that look already, the one where she'd spotted the gap in my reasoning before I'd finished the sentence. Date, she said, unbothered. You can say it. It's trivia, not a deposition. We split a plate of fries and whispered arguments about at least 4 answers. I was unreasonably strong on American geography and anything related to NASA. Tatum was lethal on anything involving food, pop culture, and a specific category about 1990s sitcoms that I was not equipped for. Priscilla watched us more than she watched the host. I noticed. I chose not to address it. On the drive back, Tatum had her foot tucked under her on the passenger seat, which I had noticed she did when she was working through something internally. Can I ask you something embarrassing? She said. Go ahead. Do you ever get good at being the version of yourself that people expect and then go home and not be completely sure what's left? I kept my eyes on the road. Yeah, I do. She was quiet. That's either comforting or deeply concerning. Probably both. She looked out the window at the lights sliding by on Mopac. My mom told me I seem better lately, like it was a compliment. I realized she meant I seem less like myself. She's more comfortable with me when I'm contained. I thought about what to say. Then I just said, what does that feel like? She looked at me, like shoes that fit fine in the store and destroy your feet by mile 3. That's a very specific metaphor. I've had a lot of time to develop it. I pulled up in front of her building. She didn't move to get out. The street was quiet, some bass drifting over from a bar a block south. We sat in it. Cade, she said. Yeah. I don't want to make this complicated. It's not complicated. It could get that way. It could, I said. I'd rather find out than not. She was quiet for a moment. Then she opened the door and stepped halfway out and looked back at me from the sidewalk. For the record, she said, you're the same at 1 a.m. on a floor with taco wrappers as you are in a presentation room. I don't know many people like that. She paused. That's not nothing. And then she went inside, and I sat there for 2 full minutes before I put the car in drive. We started spending time together the way people do when they're pretending it doesn't have a name. Coffee that ran to 90 minutes, a Saturday at the farmer's market on Republic Square where we bought twice as much produce as either of us needed, a Sunday afternoon at her apartment where she walked me through her portfolio, and I ended up staying for dinner without either of us deciding that was happening. I liked her the way that made me want to be careful. Not careful as in afraid, careful as in paying attention. Then she pulled back. It was gradual enough that I almost let myself believe it was just a busy week. Shorter messages, a rain check on Tuesday coffee. She was polite at work, Tatum was always polite, but the warmth had a door in front of it now, and the door was mostly closed. I gave it a week, then I texted, "Hey, you okay?" 40 minutes later, of course, just slammed at work. That was a reasonable text. It was also not true, and I'd been paying enough attention to know the difference. The following Thursday, I showed up at the food trucks on the corner of 5th and Congress at 12:15, knowing she came here every week because she'd mentioned it twice, without realizing she was establishing a pattern. I got there first. I was waiting when she came around the corner and saw me, and I watched her face do the small calculation of someone deciding how to handle an ambush. "Hey," she said, stopping in front of me. "Hey, you're here." "Yeah." She glanced at the trucks. "I come alone usually." "I know." Something moved across her expression, not annoyance exactly. Something more complicated. She crossed her arms. "Cade, you're pulling back," I said. "I'm not here to make that into a thing. If you've thought about it and you want to keep this at work, I'll respect that completely." But I wasn't going to pretend I didn't notice. She looked at me for a long moment. The line at the nearest truck moved without us. "I'm not pulling back because I don't want this," she said finally. "Then why?" She exhaled. "Because I'm good at the beginning. I'm genuinely good at it. And I am bad at what comes after because I've spent most of my adult life waiting for the part where it stops working." She looked at the ground briefly. "So when it doesn't fall apart on its own, I arrange it. So I'm the one who did it. So it's not a surprise." The truck line moved again. "My dad left when I was 15, she said. "Not suddenly. Just slowly, quietly, until he wasn't really there anymore. I spent years convinced there was something about me that made people decide to do that." She looked at me. "I know, rationally, that's not true, but I still flinch." She held my gaze. "And you are exactly the kind of person I could actually trust, which means you're exactly the kind of person who could actually hurt me. And that's just terrifying enough that I have been avoiding your general vicinity for 10 days. I thought about giving her space, about being measured and careful and letting her set the timeline. Then, I thought about sitting on a floor at 1 in the morning, watching her, try not to feel something in front of me and deciding to sit closer. Anyway, "I'm not going anywhere," I said. She blinked. "I'm not going to perform some patient version of myself that's really just me keeping a safe distance. I like who you actually are. The version that catches data errors at midnight. The version that argues about trivia answers in a whisper. The version that thinks she's too much and then turns out to be exactly the right amount." I paused. "I would rather do the complicated thing with you than the easy thing without you." Tatum stood there looking at me, while a truck played something country from a portable speaker nearby. "You had that ready," she said. "I've been thinking about it for a week." That's a long time to think. I wanted to get it right. She was quiet for another moment. Then she put her hand on my arm, not dramatically, just placed it there, certain and warm. "Okay," she said. "Yeah?" "Yeah." She dropped her hand and turned toward the trucks. "You're buying, though. You ambushed my lunch." "That's completely fair," I said, and followed her. We were not secret about it, and we weren't loud about it either. At work, we kept things clean. No favoritism, no spectacle, everything above board. After work, we were just ourselves. She kept a specific coffee mug at my apartment, a wide-rimmed blue one she'd brought from her own collection, and she called it Clyde's Travel Fund. She took it home one time after a disagreement about communication, which made me laugh the first time and feel genuinely bereft the second. We had real disagreements. About the cabinet doors she left open and the way I reorganized her bookshelf by spine color without asking. About the time she made a weekend plan without running it by me because she'd assumed I'd say no. About the 3 days I went quiet while processing something at work, and she thought the quiet was about her. After the 3-day incident, she sat across from me at my kitchen table with her hands folded and said, "You need to talk to me. I don't read silence the way you do. When it goes that long, I fill in all the blanks wrong." "What did you fill in?" "That you were getting tired, that I was too much." "You're not too much." "Then talk to me." "Okay," I said, and I did, and it was uncomfortable and imprecise and exactly what needed to happen. One Sunday afternoon, her mom called while Tatum was at my place. She looked at the screen, then at me, and then she answered it. I stayed at the kitchen counter and developed a very detailed interest in the process of making pour-over coffee. Mom, hi, a pause. I'm good. I'm at a friend's. Longer pause. Her voice went carefully level. I heard about the Sunday dinners. Yes. Another pause. Mom, I'm not going to keep coming if it's going to be like last time. I love you. But I need you to see me the way I actually am, not the version that makes you uncomfortable. Silence on her end that I could hear from the kitchen. I know it's not easy, Tatum said. It's not easy for me either. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word and then evened out immediately. Yeah, okay. I'll call you Tuesday. She hung up. She stood by the window with her back to me. You okay? I said. I said something true to my mother, she said, still facing the window. That's either personal growth or the opening act of a very difficult Thanksgiving. Could be both. She turned around. Her eyes were bright. How do you always do that? What? The could be both thing. Like you just hold two things at once without needing to resolve them. I thought about it. Someone told me most things are more than one thing at once. She frowned. Who told you that? You did. When you were explaining why Clyde is both low maintenance and emotionally demanding. She stared at me. I said that about a cactus. It applies broadly. She put her face in her hands. When she lowered them, she was smiling, the real one, the one that arrived without asking anyone, and she looked at me the way she had that first night on the war room floor, like she'd made a decision and was done second-guessing it. Cade, she said. Yeah. I'm glad I walked backward into you. I looked at her across my kitchen, my carefully maintained apartment, my color-coded calendar and my organized life, and the single blue coffee mug that had appeared in my cabinet 3 months ago, and that I would not under any circumstances move. Me too, I said. 7 months later, Tatum and I moved into an apartment in East Austin with tall ceilings, a kitchen that was slightly too small for two people who both had opinions about cooking, and a balcony with just enough room for 2 chairs and a second succulent she brought as a companion for Clyde. We spent the first Saturday half unpacking and half debating where the couch should go. She made strong arguments. I made slightly stronger ones. We compromised on a configuration that neither of us had originally proposed, and it turned out to be the best option in the room. Sunday morning, I came out of the bedroom to find her in the living room, surrounded by cardboard boxes, wearing my gray sweatshirt, holding 2 mugs of coffee, surveying the chaos of curtain rods and book stacks and kitchen stuff still waiting in their boxes. She turned to hand me a mug and misjudged the box behind her. I was already moving. My arm found her waist before she went anywhere. Both mugs stayed upright. Her hand landed on my shoulder, and she looked up at me, startled for exactly 1 second, and then the surprise became something warmer. Okay, she said, her voice low and easy in our messy, half-assembled living room. That was embarrassing. It wasn't. It was a little. Maybe a little. She looked down at my hand still at her waist. The morning light came through the uncurtained window and landed in a wide, pale stripe across the hardwood. Outside, someone down the street was already mowing their lawn, which was aggressively optimistic for 8 in the morning, but very on-brand for the neighborhood. Tatum looked back up at me. You know, she said slowly, with that particular expression that meant she was enjoying herself, I might need to do that again. 6 months ago, I would have laughed and stepped back. 3 months ago, I would have made it into a joke. I pulled her a little closer instead and said, whenever you want. She smiled. No permission required, no delay, and kissed me in the middle of our half-unpacked living room, amid the boxes and the curtain rods, and Clyde's new roommate already thriving on the balcony in the morning sun. There is no system for this. No rule that would have kept me sensible enough to miss it. No spreadsheet. No risk model. No carefully maintained distance that would have been worth what I'd have lost by holding it. There is just Tatum. And the fact that she walks backward into things she wasn't expecting, and I have gotten very good at being exactly where she needs me.